All right. This is Sean Gaylord, and welcome to the very first video episode of the Principal Liner Notes podcast. I figured I would step outside my comfort zone for just a little bit and try a video version of the podcast. Um, this is it. This is live, so to speak. This is me. And this is episode 91 of the Principal Liner Notes podcast. And I'm grateful that probably by this time, if you've not turned off your camera or your device, because you're looking at this mug, you're looking at this face, you're looking at this geek, thank you. So let's do, and probably what I'll do with this particular episode is do a little bit of a video preview of episode 91 of the Principal Liner Notes podcast, the very first video episode of your friendly neighborhood podcast. And I might experiment a little bit as I continue to explore the video world of Anchor. So this episode is rooted in reflection and that crossroads between music and education and leadership and culture. I do believe that music is the universal divine soundtrack, and I like to tell a few stories about how that happens or how that intersection takes place between music and life and our own audio journeys. So the other day, I was reflecting on past successes, past victories, and really kind of doing a walk down memory lane during my high school English teacher days. And what prompted that was a song by Emerson, Lake and Palmer, Lucky Man. And when I was a high school English teacher, I used to bring music into the classroom and use music as a vehicle to maybe compel discussion or deepen an idea or to help illustrate a concept that perhaps my students might not be able to relate to. And I always felt, and I still believe that music is that entry point for all of us. Music is that universal language that we all speak, that we all are able to communicate in, and we all feel some sort of joy or sadness or some sort of connection. It's that empathetic point. And I was thinking about kind of how, wow, I miss the classroom. I used to be great at what I did. And I was feeling a little melancholy, if you will, and a little nostalgic for those times when I would teach different works. And I thought about how I would, as I was listening to that Emerson, Lake and Palmer song, I thought about how um, that was a great lesson. In fact, I even brought in my guitar at one point and performed, attempted to perform Lucky Man for my students. Somewhere there's a video of that someplace, and hopefully that video will stay buried someplace. And I thought about how artists and musicians have a greatest hits, and how greatest hits albums are a victory lap. They're these little gems that kind of stand out. They were either popular hits, or they sold a lot of copies, or they create this universal connection or experience for the audience or the listener. And you take a greatest hits album and you slap them all together, and you've got the highlights, you've got all the good bits. Sometimes on albums you may have two or three good songs and the rest of the album is garbage. So for example, I know many of you know I'm a Beatles fan, and here is probably a much beloved and favorite Beatles album of mine. In fact, it was one of the first Beatle albums that I heard as a kid, and it's the 1967-70 double album, affectionately known as the Blue Album because of the cover. And you open it up in the gatefold, you got a really great picture of the Beatles and regular British citizens, and so you've got the latter day Beatles on the front cover, and then you've got the early day Beatles on the back cover, and both. It's just kind of a neat album. And you've got great songs on here, right? You've got great hits and favorite songs from the latter day Beatles albums: Strawberry Fields Forever, Penny Lane, Sergeant Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band, Magical Mystery Tour, Fool on the Hill, and then it goes into songs from the Abbey Road album, songs from the Let It Be album, and you have just a nice survey of classic past hits and favorite songs. Many of you may be familiar with this great classic album, the Steve Miller Band, right? This is considered to be one of the quintessential greatest hits albums, the 1974-78 greatest hits album of the Steve Miller Band. And side one opens with Swingtown, one of my favorites, and Take the Money and Run. I mean, basically, this is the engine that drives classic rock radio. It was a big part of my high school soundtrack. And again, you have the hits, you have the favorites, and it's a victory lap, right? And then I thought, you know, it's important for us to look at our greatest hits and look at our past victories, but sometimes we can get stuck in the past. Sometimes we can get trapped. And sometimes we get in our own feelings about that, right? Like I've had these past hits: I'll never be great again, or I'll never do good again, or I'll never reach the same heights as the glories of my own greatest hits as a teacher or an educator or a principal. And I thought about that. We should strive and push ourselves to create, to do new things, to innovate, to step outside our comfort zone, kind of like what I'm doing here in the video version of this podcast. I stay hidden in the audio podcast. I'm self-conscious about my bald head and my glasses and my geekiness. And here I am outside my comfort zone. Did do that. We do that as educators, right? We take these kind of giant small steps, right? Outside of our realm, outside of our comfort zone, to do something new and different and bold and creative and innovative for the kids and the schools and the grade levels and the classrooms that we have the opportunity, that we get to serve. And then I thought about this notion of greatest hits, and how are there greatest hits albums that not only have the past hits, but some greatest hits albums have like new songs, so that you are getting your money's worth, so to speak. I think about Willie Nelson's greatest hits album, which is entitled Willie Nelson's Greatest Hits and Some That Will Be. What a positive, proactive way of looking at that. And Willie's saying, hey, here are my old songs, but then, hey, guess what? I'm still creating. I'm still making things happen. I'm still stretching the boundaries of musical expression. And here are some new songs that I want you to enjoy, to see where I'm at now in my artistic journey. I think another example of that, the great Hall & Oates, Daryl Hall and John Oates, Rock and Soul Part 1. This is a greatest hits album, and it's not called greatest hits, but I like the fact that Rock and Soul Part 1, like, hey, here's part 1 of us in the journey. We're not done yet. Stay tuned for part 2. Stay tuned for what's to come. And if you flip on the album on the back cover, you've got, gosh, great Hall & Oates songs. I'm a big fan. Grew up with Hall & Oates, grew up with the videos, grew up with songs like She's Gone and Rich Girl, Kiss on My List. I Can't Go For That. No Can Do. It's probably my favorite Hall & Oates song. But then you've got, here it says +2 new songs recorded September 1983. Oh my gosh, I was 13. I remember when those songs came out. I remember when this album came out. So you have 2 new songs on here. Say It Isn't So. Great song. Adult Education. Maybe not their best, but still, here are 2 new songs that we're going to embed in our greatest hits album to let you know that we are still creating, we are still making things happen, and look what we can do. Look where we are now in our artistic journey. So I share all of that as we begin the school year, as we're in the back to school mode, and we're, in some cases 2 or 3 weeks in the school year, and maybe in some cases for you, maybe the honeymoon is ending. Maybe you're reaching this kind of level of nostalgia where things are new, and maybe you get to this point where, wow, I miss that person, or I miss that class from last year, or I miss that thing that we used to do from last year. And you get to this moment of nostalgia, and you think back to your greatest hits. You think back to what you had on your own respective Blue album, right? What were those hits? What were those things that you did? And you're doing a victory lap in the hallways of your memory. You're doing a retrospective, and you're thinking, and you're picking your greatest hits. And that's good to do. And those greatest hits serve as great reminders for the greatness within you, for the good things that are happening, or the great things that have resonated from what you have done. But it's also important too, not to get too stuck in the past, and not to get trapped in the Blue album that you are creating. It's important to be open to the here and now, and to be open to the greatness in your core, your why, that which compelled you to take this journey into our noble profession, and leave room for some greatest hits that are going to be greatest hits in the future. Leave room for something new and innovative, like Hall Oates did on the Rock and Soul Part 1 album. What are those things that you're going to do? What are those things that you are going to create? What are those things that you are going to innovate that are going to serve as maybe a volume 2 for your next greatest hits album? I look forward to seeing and hearing what you're going to do. I'm grateful for you tuning into episode 91 of the Principal Liner Notes podcast. I am way outside my comfort zone. I've never done a video podcast before in this realm. I've been on video podcasts before, but I've never been behind the wheel, so to speak. So I hope that what I shared with you makes sense. I hope it compels you to maybe look back at your own greatest hits, and to think about your future greatest hits, the things that you're going to do and create and iterate, and that will resonate for the students and schoolhouses and classrooms that you get to serve. I know that I will be tuning in, and thank you for tuning in to episode 91 of the Principal Liner Notes podcast. This is Sean Gaylord. This is the video. Wow. And I was able to do it, so to speak, without a net. And thank you for being, well, actually, I didn't do it without a net. You are that net by tuning in. And I'm grateful for you holding the net underneath me as I walk this tightrope of a video podcast for the first time. If you like what you saw, if you like what you heard, feel free to send me a direct message or drop me a line either through Instagram or Twitter at SM Gaylord. I look forward to hearing from you, and I look forward to seeing what future greatest hits are coming your way. This is Sean Gaylord. This is the Principal Liner Notes podcast. There is a flip side. I hope to catch you there. Thanks for tuning in. And also, don't forget to share with the world your dreams, your visions, and your ideas. The world definitely needs them, and you help make the world a better place.